They killed his dog. That's it. Not a war over territory, not a power grab, not some political chess move. They killed his dog. His wife had just died, and before she went, she arranged for a puppy to be sent to him after she was gone. So he'd still have something to love. One last gift. Some kid broke into his house, stole his car, killed the puppy. The kid's father found out, got on the phone, tried to explain to his son what he'd just done. Son still didn't get it. Father leaned in. That man is John Wick. He once killed 3 men with a pencil. And the father already knew before he hung up the phone. It was already over. Now, I'm not here to review a movie. I'm here to show you something. Because everything that happens in those 4 films, every rule, every betrayal, every layer of power, is a map of how the real world actually operates. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So let's build it up from the ground. John Wick isn't dangerous because of a title, not because of a bank account, not because of who his family is or what position he holds. He's dangerous because of what he earned. He completed what they call the impossible task, paid for his freedom in full, walked away clean, got quiet, got a life. Not hiding, free, on his own terms. That distinction between someone who earned their power and someone who was simply handed a position is what tonight is entirely about. In the John Wick world, everything flows through something called the high table. Assassins, hotels, contracts, rules, politicians stay out of it. Law enforcement looks the other way. The media doesn't touch it. Most people watching those films think the high table is the ceiling of power. It isn't. In Chapter 3, John is excommunicated. Every door is closed. He has one move left. He calls in a marker from an old contact. Sophia, played by Halle Berry, who manages a Continental hotel in Casablanca. After an incredible fight through that hotel and through the streets of Morocco alongside Sophia and her dogs, not his, Sophia gets John to the edge of the desert. Then she hands him a water bottle. But first, she gives most of it to her dogs, drinks the rest herself, and then spits what's left back into the bottle for John. That's what you get from a person who only showed up because she owed you a debt. John takes that bottle, and he walks into the desert alone. He walks following a constellation in the sky, because that's all the direction he was given. Walks until he collapses, until he physically cannot move anymore. And then, he's found, brought to a tent, and he wakes up face to face with a man sitting quietly in the sand. The elder. The one who sits above the high table. No army, no boardroom, no press secretary. Just a man with all the power. Because at that level, you don't need any of that. You are the order. Everything else just executes it. Now let's talk about the real world. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Orsinis, the DuPonts. Bloodlines that have been building and maintaining power for centuries. The generational families. The Rothschilds were financing both sides of war simultaneously in the early 1800s. Not because they supported either side. Because both sides would owe them when it was over. That's not wealth. That's control over the outcome of history itself. The Rockefellers didn't just build Standard Oil. They funded the educational systems, the medical curriculum, the philanthropic institutions that shaped how entire generations were taught to think. That's not business. That's a generational agenda. The Orsinis go back to medieval Rome, before the modern nation state existed, before the concept of a corporation existed, operating at the highest levels of power for so long that most people don't even know to look for them. These are your elders. They don't campaign, they don't tweet, they don't need to. The machinery exists inside the order they built. And just like in the film, you don't find them. They find you. When you've walked far enough into the desert to prove you're serious. Below the family sits the structure that transmits their order into the visible world. The Bank for International Settlements, the BIS. The bank above the central banks. The institution the Federal Reserve answers to. Most people have never heard of it. That's not by accident. The Council on Foreign Affairs, where American foreign policy gets written before any president ever sees it. The IMF, the World Bank, institutions that look like international cooperation but function as enforcement mechanisms for the order above them. Unelected, unaccountable. They predate every administration and outlast every election. That's the real high table. The families and the institutions can't manage everything directly, so they appoint someone. In part 4, the high table sends the Marquis de Gramont to handle the John Wick problem. And what's critical about the Marquis? He's not old money. He's not generational power. He's a climber. Rose from nothing into proximity to the high table and was handed delegated authority to enforce their agenda. Drunk on borrowed access. Moves through expensive rooms in expensive suits. Not because he belongs there. Because he was let in. He doesn't fight his own battles. He finds what you love, and he holds it over you. Now, think about a man from humble beginnings in Brooklyn. No family money, no clear explanation for how he ended up managing the finances of some of the most powerful people on the planet. A private island, a private plane, a guest list that read like a directory of global power. Jeffrey Epstein was the Marquis. Not the power, the instrument of power. The cameras in those properties weren't incidental. They were the product. Every senator, every royal, every CEO who walked through those doors, cataloged, filed, permanently compromised, permanently manageable. Not just a trafficking operation. A human leverage program. Run by a climber. On behalf of people whose names we still have not fully seen. And when Epstein became a liability, the Marquis got a bullet. Epstein got a jail cell and a very convenient death. The files went somewhere safe. The clients kept their positions. The elder never came to the desert to answer questions. The elder sent someone to handle the problem. Now there's one more character, because not everyone in this system is simply corrupt. The Marquis needed real skill to go after John Wick, so he found Kane, John's old friend, blind, retired, sitting in a park listening to his daughter play violin. A genuinely good man. A genuinely dangerous man. The Marquis didn't appeal to loyalty, didn't offer him money. He just said, "Your daughter dies if you don't." And Kane picked up the sword. Look around you at the real world. Every senator who knows better but keeps the vote going the wrong way. Every general who doesn't want the war but signs the recommendation. Every judge whose past sits in a file somewhere. Every journalist who gets close and then suddenly pulls back. Some of them are Kane. Not simply corrupt, leveraged. Good people, capable people, pulled back in because the machinery found what they love. That's how the real high table maintains control. Not through loyalty, through leverage. Now, the man everyone is arguing about. Half the country thinks he's a genius playing chess. The other half thinks he's destroying everything. Both of them are arguing about the wrong man. Because the man they're arguing about is not John Wick. He never completed the impossible task. He never earned the exit. He never walked 7 days through any desert. Nobody spit in his water bottle because he hadn't even earned the water. He's not at the high table. He's not even at the table. He's on the porch. Not in a chair. On a lower stair. Close enough to the door to look like he belongs to the house. Far enough back that when the real discussions and decisions get made on the inside, nobody had to ask him to leave. He was never invited in. He was placed there because he was loud, because he was visible, because his name on the mailbox keeps people arguing about the mailbox while the actual business gets done inside. And the tell is very simple. A powerful man builds. The man on the stair takes. The tariff announcement with the stock play already positioned before it hit, the crypto, the digital cards, the licensing deals, monetizing the porch. Because he knows his window is finite. When they no longer need the face on the mailbox, they close the front door. And unlike John Wick, there is no impossible task on his record that buys him safe passage. There is no elder who owes him anything. He just disappears from the stair. At the end of chapter 4, John wins, then sits down on the steps and dies. Not from an enemy, from the weight of everything the machinery put him through just to reach that moment of freedom. He won, and it cost him everything. The elder is still in the desert. The high table is still operating. The next marquee is already being fitted for his suit. The next man is already being positioned on the next porch. The machinery keeps moving. That's what they put on a screen and called fiction. That's what's playing on every screen in your house right now. The only difference between John Wick and the rest of us? He knew the architecture, every level of it. Pattern literacy is the pencil. Doesn't look like much until you know how to use it. Watch the pattern. Follow the money. Connect the dots. This is Keith. Thank you for enjoying Movie Night with KeithSpeaks. If you agree or disagree, like, comment, definitely feel free to share. Hopefully you'll subscribe. And I'll see you next Saturday when we watch another movie.